This method doesn't care if you have symptoms or not, it will detect it.
Since the pandemic began, officials have been using nasal swab tests to track infection rates. More scientists, though, are now turning to wastewater. Channel 3 Eyewitness News reporter Aya Galal shows us how researchers at UConn are using the new method.
By now, this has become a familiar sight. Nasal swabs used to test for the coronavirus. UConn is randomly testing hundreds of students every day. But there's another way UConn is keeping tabs on coronavirus levels, and it involves wastewater.
It's been important for detecting the beginnings of outbreaks.
Dr. Kendra Moss is the director of a DNA sequencing facility on campus. Since June, she's been collecting samples from the wastewater treatment plant on campus. By looking at wastewater, Dr. Moss and her team of students can predict increases in cases.
Not only are we seeing where people are starting to get sick, I can also see if the levels drop back down in that area.
Once large samples of wastewater are taken and the virus is concentrated down, researchers can narrow virus locations on campus. Teams have mapped out which samples come from which buildings.
So I have samplers on clusters of dorms mostly. I have a few samplers that are on classroom buildings or public spaces like the student union or the library.
And Dr. Moss says this type of testing is important when tracking COVID, particularly on a college campus.
It's very likely that a large number of infected individuals are asymptomatic and they'll never develop symptoms.
Dr. Moss was encouraged by research being done at Yale and in parts of Europe. She says she would love to process samples for other towns and universities.
Once I have it in the lab, I can process a large number of samples in a day. I'm not limited to the number of samples I have here at UConn. But getting those samples is somewhat difficult.
In the next month or so, UConn researchers will also be using this method to track the flu on campus. In stores, Aya Galal, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.